In the previous lesson, we started to use CSS code to stylize our website, but also to create a really simple layout. So we started to investigate how the div works, and basically the div tag or division tag is a container, and can be a parent, can be a child, so it can be also contained into another div, and it defines a structure in today's websites. And this is also an example of an elastic layout, or we can call this fluid actually more than elastic, because you can see that every tag is kind of adapting to the size, except for the logo, which we give some specific dimensions. So we started using divs, and we saw that in the insert panel we have some divs that are already prepared for us with specific names, and we can use them to create our layout. And these are elements that you will find in any website. So there's always going to be like a navigation, of course, because we need to move in the pages, and we created like a rough navigation menu in another lesson. It needs to have a content, which in this case could be considered here as main. So the content, like the main part of the page, and then like additional panels and sections. And then it almost always have a footer. And then we have other stuff we're going to see later. So let's concentrate again on the layout. Usually the creation of a website starts with some graphic design, some pitch or mock-up that we can do to explain without actually creating the website, but just like the aesthetics, the general look and feel, but also the interface where the menu is going to go, or where other panels or the main content will go, etc., etc. And we said that to do this, we have different solutions like Figma, or we can also use Photoshop or any other graphic design, so like Pixlr or Canva or whatever. So to create a layout, we have a lot of options. Also InDesign, by the way, it creates layout for printed graphics and also digital graphics. So once we have that, we need to turn this into an actual website or an actual structure for a page. And if we go in the website layout, we can also see some examples here. And there are so many solutions depending on your needs. Now, this is kind of the standard right here, where we have the header on the top, the navigation menu below, and then you have the content divided sometimes into columns or grids, and then you have the footer at the bottom. And again, there's no like a specific guide for this. You can do anything you want. You can take inspiration on the web. So we will define a CSS layout. And to do this, we need some extra rules for our divs. So we're going to use position mainly and size. So we need to define all the elements where they're going to go. So we're going to say the header is going to go on the top, and then it's going to have this size, etc., etc. Now we have a couple of possibilities. We're going to go more into deep with this, but essentially you can create like a site that is static and that doesn't move and doesn't like adapt, and then you can create something adaptive that, as we saw here, can also be used in other types of screens like smartphones and tablet. And we're gonna again go more in depth with this, but essentially when you do something static, you use a static units of measure like pixels, which are the units for graphic design at Photoshop, etc., etc. When you do something more adaptive or responsive, you use like percentage, responsive, you use percentage, you use EM, which are other units that these are not static. These will change accordingly to the screen. Well, also pixels, they're not really always the same. Depending on the resolution on the screen, they can be smaller and bigger, but a pixel is a pixel. It doesn't adapt to the circumstances. So we're gonna start with pixels with something static, and then we're gonna go into something more um, adaptive and responsive. And there are also like hybrids in this. So we will see all the possible solutions, the main solutions. Now, for example, in Photoshop, you have a tool that is called the slice tool. And if I go here and search it, you can see some extra information on the Adobe site. And by the way, if you're looking for something There's always going to be a manual on the Adobe website. So if you don't know a specific tool, you want to know more, just search it in the Adobe website. You will find your answers. And so I created some website using Photoshop and using the slicing. So I used the Photoshop to do the mockup or like the general graphic, and then I slice all the different parts to create a structure. And with that, you can do basically two things. You can export as CSS or as tables. But we already said that tables is kind of an old way to do the structure of a page, of a website. Nowadays, we use CSS and other languages, but mainly for the structure, the layout, we use CSS. So I want to show you a couple of examples that I did with Photoshop, and if you want, you can check the Photoshop video course in the channel. And here, of course, we talk about a lot of graphic design things, but also how to create like graphics for the web. For example, you can see here I've exported here an HTML page. If I open it up, you can see this is an image. So of course you can create image, you can modify image in Photoshop. You can also prepare them for the web, and in this case, you can make them lighter, not so heavy. And also this is an animated. So if I click on the refresh here, you can see it's a small animation. This is a GIF animation. It's not in the page. This is always linked outside. So what we're seeing here is the page, but the actual image that's right there. So if I go here in the properties, I can see this is a GIF. Now, in the past, we made large use of images, animation like this, or using Flash, but all of this now is kind of deprecated, is abandoned because we need the website to be lighter and faster for usability reason, but also for smartphone and tablets, etc., etc. Now, another thing I want to show you is how I use the slice tool to export a user interface for the web. So this is an example right here where I have a lot of images, and these are the slices of the website I just used as an example, and I slice with the slice tool. So if I want to create like a full graphic website like this, I can do it, but it's not how things work today. So you can see here the header menu. Well, this is a quick example, of course. It doesn't have too much aesthetic, but that's fine. And you can use advanced effects in Photoshop like opacity and shadows and things like that. Right now we can also use in using the CSS. So this is kind of old style website right here. If I open it up, right click and open it up with Dreamweaver, we can see here the structure. So this is here the header right here, and then the menu, and then the content, and the side panel. And if I go in here, this is an example of a website created with table. So when we look at outside, it's going to look just like a CSS. And this is static. You can see that if I move the little banner here and I make this smaller, it doesn't adapt. It's just staying like that. So this was good like a long time ago when we have like certain dimensions, certain screens, but now is not possible anymore. So I'm gonna close this, and I'm also gonna close the previous lesson site that we created, and I want to show you again something for the just for the sake of see the differences. Something here for the in the starter templates. So let's go for let's go for basic simple grid. Okay, so first of all, up here we can see if there is some responsiveness, or if this is adaptive or responsive. We can see it right here, and it does have some media queries that will guide the look. So you can see that when I switch from this dimension into this, it just changes everything. It changes the way, and also from here to here, changes the way the website is displayed. Now here we have a header right here. So we can start now to study this a little bit more and know a little bit better what we're doing. And also, we're gonna see later how we can insert bootstrap responsive elements. So this is H4 logo, and when I am in live mode, so the sign mode, I can see the structure with these dashed lines, which is pretty neat and